following video is brought to you by the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please consider liking and subscribing for more Boston sports content.
I got the Boston Celtics going to the final.
I got them winning without.
It's time to represent your city. Put your hands up. Cali, you know we do it for Boston. Hey, ain't nobody ballin' like Boston. Yeah, hey, can't nobody do it like Boston. Where the legends get made, where the banners get raised, bright lights, big stage. Boston. All the fire we bring in a city full of rings, it's a beautiful thing out in Boston. And you ain't hard like that. You don't put it on the line with your squad like that. That's right, Boston. All we do is win like cigars in the gym, and we at it again. I say, Beantown, what's up? What's up? 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 Feel the energy shift. Now we jumping at the gym. Represent, showing out how we ball above the rim. Larry Legend, 86 to the truth in 08. Cement your name with the all-time greats. Still banner 18 in the Raptors. Celtic green, only green that matters. It's about that time. Ain't another city that's louder than mine. Always gonna shine with the game on the line. What you think was gonna happen, man? That's how we do it in Boston. Ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah, yeah. Can't nobody do it like Boston.
All right, welcome into this episode of the Dynasty Proud podcast presented by BSEN. As always, I am Ryan at 19_loading on Twitter. He is Alex at AlexZachary305. We are coming to you on this Tuesday, December 3rd. It's been a couple weeks since we have been able to talk because of Thanksgiving. So in some ways that's good because it means we have a lot to talk about. So Alex, how you doing?
Doing good. How's it going down there?
It's good. It's finally starting to get cold down here. Finally need the winter jacket down here in Atlanta. I know you're probably dealing with it a lot more than I am up in Boston now, but I think we figured we'd start with the recent games the last couple days. I guess we'll jump right into it we'll start with the Cavs game from Sunday. So this game was pretty tight for a long time. The Celtics won the third quarter 35-21. This is just my opinion, and you can tell me if you disagree. I think they completely choked this game away. Do you agree with that or no?
It had a lot of similar feelings to the Dean Wade game last regular season that ended that 11-game winning streak. This time it ended a 7-game winning streak. But at least it was Donovan Mitchell and not Dean Wade going off in the fourth quarter. But it felt very similar. It wasn't the same type of lead, but it was still a lead nonetheless. They did choke it away, but also they just couldn't stop him every single time down Cleveland, particularly Donovan Mitchell was scoring at will. And it just felt like no matter what, like he was going to score. And so we were trading baskets, but we were trading twos for threes. And then, we scored most possessions, but we were still losing ground the entire time. So all the momentum swung back in one direction. And then, at the end, it became a free throw contest, which we never really had a shot. Pritchard got off a good look on that second free throw to get the ball back. He jumped too early. He probably didn't even need to. But, yeah, I mean, you can only take so much away from it. Both games were relatively tight. I felt like we were both in control of both Cleveland games, though, and we should have won both of those games. In a series, assuming health on both sides, where we have a full roster, regardless of who they have, I still feel very confident against them. I don't think they're our biggest competition in the East. They've had a great season so far, but I feel confident against them. Donovan Mitchell is that type of scorer where he's going to win a game or two for you by himself. But I just think overall we're just vastly superior, talented, particularly if we have a full roster at our disposal. What do you think?
So, a regular season game is never going to necessarily change my mind in a vacuum about how I feel about a team over the course of 82 games. And as I think we've probably said every week on this podcast, they aren't going to go 82-0. Nobody's ever done it. But I do think that was as bad of a loss as a regular season game can be. Like, they were in control of that game, and it just slipped away from them in a bad way. Now, it's not like a huge lead they choked away, but it's just one of those games that I would like to see them take control of. And, for years, these were kind of the types of games that kind of plagued the Celtics, where they just had that issue. They just could not close out games for whatever reason. And I think they're over that for the most part. And again, this is just one game, so it's not like the end of the world. It's not a total catastrophe. but there are some things to worry about. I will say they were missing some guys. So it's, not, they didn't have Jaylen Brown. They didn't have Derek White. So it wasn't like the full cast was out there and they let it slip away like that. But Drew Holiday was bad in this game. He was a -11. He had 4 points, 2 of 9 shooting, 0 of 3 from 3. He had 5 assists and 2 steals, but he just couldn't really get anything going on a night where they kind of needed him because they were without Jaylen and Derek White. The top scorers for the night were Tatum, Pritchard, and Porzingis. I would think it would be enough to get it done if you have 3 guys with 20-plus points. Caveat to that would be that a lot of Pritchard's points came at the end during the foul fest toward the end there. So, some of that might not necessarily, it wasn't a true 20-point performance, I guess is what I'm saying. He was still pretty good, but Tatum had 33. And as you said, Donovan Mitchell was just unconscious in the fourth quarter. He finished with 35 points. Darius Garland had 22 along with 8 assists. And the big thing was, as I was just saying, Garland hit all of his free throws down the stretch during that whole thing. I think the Celtics were sort of banking on him maybe missing one. He might have been a guy that they were sort of targeting, like we think he might miss one. So let's try and get him at the line because that was kind of their only hope to get back into it. And Pritchard did hit that 3 to make it a one-possession game, and they would have only been able to go up 3, the Cavs would. So it would have been pretty cool to see them try to pull that off, but the big takeaway for me is just that this is a game that the Celtics should win, and they were in control for most of the second half. Other than Mitchell and Garland, nobody else really hurt them. Mobley had 9 points. Jared Allen was a -6 for the game in a win for them. There wasn't really anyone in particular that really killed them other than themselves, I thought.
So they're 17-4 right now. And if you look at the 4 losses, you can make that argument for each one of the 4 losses. Like Golden State, yeah, that game was back and forth and they kind of let go of the rope at the end. But the thing that I found as kind of a theme of all 4 of these games is all 4 of these losses, when they need to get a stop, they can't get one. And that's kind of the takeaway from it. Now, you're not going to go 82-0, and you can make the argument for each one of these games. That Hawks loss was atrocious. I think a lot of that was just they didn't respect the opponent. You look at, especially the Hawks suck as is. I mean, they're better than you thought they'd be this year for sure. I mean, ask Cleveland about it. But, without Trae Young, you could definitely say they took their foot off the gas going into that game. The Warriors game they could have won that game. The Cavs game, what was the other one they lost? Indiana. I mean, they came out not on, into it, and then they fought their way back. But then at the end, in overtime, Siakam hit that big shot. So, like I said, you're not going to go 82-0, but every single game's an annoyance. But then again, it's what is a good loss? If we were just dominated by the Cavs from start to finish, and yeah, maybe not a 30-point loss, but let's just say the whole game they're up 12-15. Is that a better loss? Is that easier to take? Or, the reverse of that is okay, we have a big lead, and then they score 6 points in the final 3 seconds, a 3 a steal and a 3 to win. Is that easier to take? To me, that'd be much harder to take. It's just, it's a regular season game. A loss is a loss. It kind of sucks. It was a superstar that just went off at the end, and then it was smart strategy, as annoying as it is, not just as a Celtics fan that wants to win the game, but as a basketball fan, you want to see them get a chance to, take a shot. But the Celtics being as lethal of a 3-point shooting team as they are, Cleveland was smart strategy-wise to not allow them to. So that way, when you had the opportunity with less than 10 seconds left down 3 with the ball and a timeout at midcourt, you had to find a way where you're not going to get a dribble off. It's not like a catch and shoot. You almost had to act like there was 1 second left in the game. You had to screen for somebody, get somebody open, and get a good look. The second Pritchard put it on the floor, he wasn't going to be able to get it off. So back to your point, I don't think they were trying to follow Darius Garland. He just quit. He's their best free throw shooter, and he got open. They got, I believe it was Niang, for 2 free throws that were his first 2 free throws of the entire season. That was our shot to have him miss one, and he didn't. So it's unfortunate, he can't win them all. I still think we're going to end up winning the conference. I don't think Cleveland's that good. I think once their schedule gets a little bit harder, which is going to, I think, come soon, that, Waterloo's going to find its level. They're not a bad team, but I could see them not only being the 1 seed, not even being the 2 seed either. Milwaukee's, skyrocketing right now. Orlando's been really good this year without Banchero. So we'll see how it plays out. I still feel very confident that the Celtics, even with the load managing that they will do throughout the season, will finish as the number 1 seed.
Yeah, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but my prediction from a couple weeks ago is just that I do still think, even with this loss, the Celtics are at some point going to overtake the Cavs and become the 1 seed, probably by Christmas time, something like that. That was my prediction. We'll see if it plays out that way, but I mean, the Cavs are, I mean, they're well coached, they're disciplined. I don't think they're not like an insane collection of talent. They don't have amazing players outside of Mitchell. They play really well together, though. I will give them that. But you know, I think losses are just tough to stomach in any case, especially when you know, you're rooting for the Celtics who just are so good. You kind of expect them to win every single night, regardless of whether they're playing a team who technically is above them in the standings. But I do sort of expect the Cavs. It's more so that I expect the Cavs to sort of backslide a little bit. Not that they're going to be terrible. I really don't think. I think they're a really good team. They'll be a top 3-4 seed in the conference. But as you said, Milwaukee is storming toward them, getting themselves over 500 now, which is, you know, they're back to what we sort of expect them to be. Going into the Heat game from last night, this was second of a back-to-back. A lot of guys out, and the Celtics cruised to a victory, 108-89. There was no Jimmy Butler for the Heat, and they were also missing Kevin Love, Josh Richardson, Nikola Jovic, and Khalil Ware. The Celtics had no Drew Holiday, no Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, and no Sam Hauser. So this was like a battle of the benches. Like this was outside of, I mean, the Celtics still had Tatum, Brown, White, and Pritchard. But, you know, it was a lot of guys that don't normally get a lot of minutes. Drew Peterson was playing a good amount, and we saw him on Sunday too. Down the stretch, he apparently was not told that he was going into that Cleveland game at any point, and Joe just looked at him. Joe looked at him and told him he was supposed to go in, and he was like, "Oh, I thought you were talking about Drew Holiday, like me." Like, so that was pretty funny. But did you have any thoughts from the Miami game last night?
So I'll get to the game in a second. I saw a tweet from, I forgot who the Celtics fan was, but it's almost like not even fun anymore to make fun of them for kicking their ass. It's just because they're just not good anymore. It's like that fan base is like crashing out, like they're imploding. Like it's not as fun of a rivalry anymore just because it's so one-sided now. Like, yeah, I get it. Jimmy Butler wasn't playing, but Jimmy Butler never plays. Jimmy Butler is like Embiid when it comes to playing us. Like, it's just always something with him. So, I mean, I get it. It's a legitimate injury. Like, he had banged his knee, I believe, the night before. We were both on a back-to-back. We were missing guys as well. But, I mean, it's not even an excuse anymore. Like, that team, especially Bam, who looks like he's regressed severely. Like, Bam looked like he was, you know, like, on the up, and then he was adding to his three-point shot. He was on the Olympic team, and he was playing major minutes this summer. Like, you thought, like, he was going to take that next step and maybe even become, like, a true superstar. And it looks like he's regressed. Like, he looks like he's lost his confidence out there. And, like, that team, especially when you can't count on Jimmy and the other problems that they have, like, if Bam's not going to not only take a step up, but he's going to regress, like, that team is going to go nowhere fast, which is kind of where they've been going the last couple of seasons. So, as far as the game, there's levels to this. We're just a much, much better team. Like, Terry Rozier looks like he also regressed on that team. So, like, what do they have? Like, Tyler Hero played okay. Like, it just – those two teams don't look like they belong on the same floor. They really don't. Yes, Jimmy Butler adds to it, but so does you add Porzingis and Drew Holiday and Al Horford for us. Like, I mean, if there's still stragglers out there and Heat fans that'll lie to themselves that, like, oh, if we have Jimmy Butler in a playoff series, like, I like our chance against the Celtics. Like, no, you don't. Like, this isn't that Celtics team. Like, that Celtics team, first of all, 2 years ago should have beaten you. And if it wasn't for, you know, the Tatum falling under with Heat culture sliding under his ankle in Game 7 would have beat you. But, like, the way that they elevated their roster since then with adding Drew Holiday, adding Porzingis, now it's more championship laden. We've won a title. We've been over the mountaintop. Like, I still can't see that team winning more than one game against us. And it took an all-time historic shooting performance. Like, sure, if Jimmy played, the games might have been closer. But, like, they were all 30-point games. So I just don't see them as a threat. And they have to have a kind of a come-to-Jesus moment soon if what they're going to do with the future of their team, because Jimmy Butler's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. There are teams out there. There's a report today, NBA Central. I had to figure out who the reporter was, but it was like the Mavs, the Rockets might have an interest in him. I keep pushing this that I think the perfect fit for him would be the Thunder because they actually have real assets to give up that don't affect their roster at all. And I think putting him in there with Shea and with the other pieces they have, like that could elevate them to a real championship contender. But I just don't see with this roster how they're ever going to get above like this, like the play-in level, maybe 6 seed max. And as being a real contender, like they're not going to strike lightning in a bottle again with that 2023 run, which that problem was that convinced Pat Riley that that roster was better than it was, that they were ahead of where they really are, and he didn't want to add to it. And he even said, he's like, it's hard for me to make trades. Well, you probably should step down then. Like, he reminds me of Danny Ainge at the end of his run in Boston. Like, he was just, too afraid to pull the trigger. Like, if he wasn't going to massively win the trade, he wasn't going to do the trade. And I think Pat Riley should step aside. Maybe they, need to move Spo up like we did with Brad Stevens, or have an outside voice come in. But I don't think Pat Riley's the guy for that team anymore. And the takeaway really isn't on the Celtics, it's more on the Heat. Like, I just don't think they're that good.
I've made this comparison before with Riley. I mean, and I know some people have an issue with crossing sports and making comparisons this way, but I look at him the way I looked at what Bill Belichick looked like the Patriots at the end. He thinks way more of the players he has on his roster than they actually are. He thinks so highly of them, and they're just well, sure, and of his ability to find that diamond in the rough, right? To get somebody off the street, to pull in a Haywood Highsmith and win a championship with him. Like, I don't think you're going to do that. I think you need real talent, and he knows more basketball than I will ever have a chance of even coming close to. But it just seems like he's sort of lost his touch with reality of what the NBA is. And I kind of agree with you. I think if he's not willing to adapt, he probably needs to step away from that role. You think there's any chance of a good fit for Butler with Houston? I mean, I'm thinking primarily because of, I guess, honestly, because of the way that Ime Udoka is coaching them right now. Like, they just play sort of that hard-nosed style of basketball. They've got young pieces they could move. Do you think there's any fit there? He's a Texas native as well. So it's just, I feel like that's sort of a natural place that he might want to go.
I mean, I could definitely see as a fit because they don't have a guy in that roster. I mean, I guess you could say Jalen Green, but like a guy in the roster where it's like, it's money time. Someone gives someone the ball and get out of the way, so to speak. Like, they don't really have that player. Like, you look at Oklahoma City, they kind of do in Shea. You look over at Dallas, like, I don't see the fit there, because then you have Luka, you have Kyrie, you have Klay Thompson. Like, it doesn't really make sense. If anything, it makes them smaller because of what they if you're going to play all four of those guys at the same time, unless you're going to keep Klay on the bench. So Houston's much more of a fit. It just depends. What are you giving up to get him? I mean, obviously you're not going to give up Sengun to give him, because that doesn't make any sense, honestly, for either team. But I mean, I can see that being a fit. It just depends how stubborn Riley is. If he's just like, well, let's just ride it out. Like, Jimmy might want to stay here long term, which honestly isn't a good idea for them anyways, to extend him. Like, if you extend him, you pay him all that money. This isn't baseball where you have no salary cap. Like, if you have Jimmy Butler, he'll be 36 next year, eating up that much of the cap with a roster that's not good. Like, where are you going? This isn't like Derek Jeter with the Yankees, where it's like, okay, well, he's been here his whole career. He's a, first ballot Hall of Famer, generational player. Like, you're doing right by him. Jimmy Butler's only been there. Like, it feels like he's been there forever. He's only been there for like 5 years. So it's, it doesn't owe Jimmy anything. Like, he kind of let LeBron leave. He let D Wade leave. Like, Jimmy Butler's not above them to Pat Riley. So Pat Riley, that is a good comparison with Bill Belichick, because ego's a big part of it too. And that they think they're smarter than everybody else, that they can find, the diamond in the rough. With the thing that Bill Belichick always had, though, is he always had Tom Brady. Pat Riley doesn't have a Tom Brady. Like, he had LeBron, he had D Wade. Like, Jimmy Butler, he's an alpha, but he's not a Tom Brady. So it'd be interesting to see what happens over there. It depends how Miami plays. Like, if Miami's just hovering around like play-in level, unless they're convincing themselves they're going to go on another magical run like 2 years ago, which is a really bad investment in the team. But I would try to, like, if you could get a good asset for him from Miami's standpoint, take a step back, get a good asset, something that you can either flip or have to pair with Bam going forward. If Bam's like the future star of Miami, then that's a better play versus trying to make another run from the play-in. And, like, the East has gotten better. Like, it looked at the beginning of the season like it hadn't, but it really has. Like, the Knicks should be better. The Bucks should be, well, they are kind of running into form right now, but the top of the East and East throughout is like the depth is better. Like, who are you putting them above? Like, are you putting them above Orlando? Are you putting them above Cleveland? Are you putting them above Indiana? Like, I mean, God, Atlanta's a game back of them or 2 games back of them right now. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you do with that team, but I think moving Jimmy is the move. We'll see if it happens, though.
I'm with you. I also just it strikes me as one of those situations where both sides actually are kind of in a bad spot because of Jimmy's age is a major hindrance for other teams that might want to come in and get a guy like him. Like I don't know, is the market as big for him as maybe the Heat would hope and Jimmy would hope,
and his durability issues as well.
Yeah, and is he going to be there for you every night? Not so sure about that. But then also, the Heat are kind of in a situation where they're looking at it from the flip side, like it's going to be hard to move this guy. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But we can get back into the game from last night, though. Jordan Walsh got the start. That was interesting. Only ended up playing 13 minutes. Didn't actually see a lot out of him, but he was still a plus 10. I thought it might be kind of a big night for Keita. It turned out to be that Luke Cornett was more the main big in this one. His numbers probably won't jump off the page the way they should, but he had 6 blocks, which tied his career high. I thought he played really well. Like he didn't do anything spectacular outside of the shot blocking, but he was just in the right place all night. Like he's one of those guys that is pretty slow, to be honest, but his positioning is really good. He knows where he needs to be in order to compete with these guys who are so much more athletic than him. So I have to credit him for that. Jaylen Brown led the team in points with 29. Peyton Pritchard was close behind with 25. Tatum had 18 and 11 rebounds and 4 assists. This game in particular was a good one for all the guys' plus minus numbers too, because there were 6 guys with a plus minus of 10 or more. The game was never really in question. But the thing that I kind of wanted to get into on this one was I saw a lot of people saying that this wasn't that good of a game for Tatum and like that it looked like a problem. And like, I know he didn't shoot well. He was 7 for 21 from the floor, 3 of 12 from 3. He had 6 turnovers, but this really wasn't a game where they needed a lot out of him. And the thing that annoys me is that we're still living in this world where the standard for Jason Tatum is so high. And yet a guy like Anthony Edwards has one of the worst games in recent memory for him in a win. And everyone on social media says, well, it's the win that's important. So they got it done. Good for him. Like, where is that for Jason Tatum? It's infuriating. Like, I'm not even the biggest like Jason Tatum defender in the world. Like, I obviously like him. He's the best player on my favorite team in all of sports. I'm not saying I don't like him, but I'm not one of those people who defends him at all costs. But like, we can't keep doing this. The double standard is just getting out of control.
It's just this weird, like anti-Celtic, particularly Tatum as the face of the Celtics, like anti-Tatum, like discussion. Like then you have Luka Doncic, like despite the loss man. You have, as you just referenced, Anthony Edwards, who can have like a horrible game like that, and everyone just lets him off the hook. And then it's like Tatum. It's like no matter what he does, if he puts up big numbers and they lose, it's like, oh, lost to so and so. Stat padding, and then he puts up big numbers in a win, but it's Brooklyn. It's like, versus Brooklyn doesn't matter. They beat the crap out of Miami last night. He has good numbers across the board, but his shooting percentage is low. It's like, they're getting on him for that. If he puts up big numbers in a win, then it's like show field goal percentage. Like there's just this weird hate for him, and it doesn't like, and he has the title, and he's like accomplished so much at his age, only 26 years old, and like I said, I think it's because he's a Celtic. If he was with a different organization, like if he played his whole career in Phoenix and he just won a title last year after leading Phoenix to the Western Conference Finals, like deep every year, been to the finals before, like you would not be having the same conversations about him. It's this weird Celtic, like anti-Celtic narrative that carries across Twitter, that carries across a lot of the ESPNs. Now that they're kind of changing it a little bit just because they won the championship. So, they come around a little bit, but like the Twitter losers, they'll still say what they have to say. But I don't think it really matters to him at the end, because everyone they couldn't win a championship. Then he wins the championship. Well, he wasn't the finals MVP. Like, who cares? Like, it really doesn't matter. And then if he does it this year, like, what are you going to say now? If he wins the finals MVP this year, like, you can't win anything. But I think he's doing pretty well with everything. Like he's top 2 in the MVP discussion right now. Like, it's just if Nikola Jokic plays enough games, he's gonna win it. It's just he's gonna win it every year unless there's like voter fatigue again, or Tatum can get his own mouthpiece in the media like Embiid did with like Perk, just kind of crying for him openly on the airwaves to give him the MVP. So short of that, I don't know if he can win it at least this year, but he's been putting up great numbers. Not every night's gonna be perfect for him, but even when he's not shooting well, and he's not scoring at a very high level, he's doing other things. He's getting assists, he's getting rebounds, he plays defense. Like, if Luke is not shooting well, that he's just not having, he's not involved. He doesn't play defense. He's not like he creates for other people sometimes, but he's a shoot first point guard. Luke, if you want to call him a point guard. So it's just the discourse for Tatum. It's not good, but it doesn't. I don't think it really matters.
No, I certainly don't think it matters to him. He can leave those battles up to us. Like I'm more than happy to kind of go to bat for him on this stuff, because I'd much rather have him not paying attention to this kind of thing. But I also think in some weird way that this level of and this type of like hate that he gets, like it's almost like closeted respect. Like, does that make sense? Like people actually think he's good, but they don't want to believe it. So they're like trashing him for this or that, and they just think he's corny or whatever. But like they actually in their minds like don't really believe that. So I'm wondering if maybe some of it is that.
That I don't know. I think the fact that he's the face of the Celtics and people hate the Celtics because they're told to hate the Celtics is a big part of it. And then like he doesn't do all this stuff off the court, you know, like he balls and he's a family man. Like that's all he does. Like he's not making rap videos. He's not flashing guns on IG Live. Like, you know, he's not doing all this crazy stuff. Like, I don't know, like the whole aura, swagger, all that stuff, like not to get into that conversation, because I don't think that really matters at all. But like, he's a very, very, you know, good baller, good hooper. So I don't see what the issue that people have is. And he plays within the game, like the team game. Like he's not selfish. Like he's not out there stat padding. Like people will say if, you know, he scores a lot of points, it's just all stat padding. But it's not. Like he plays within himself. Like, yeah, you know, he's going to take the most shots on the team. He's the best player in the team. Like sometimes his end of the quarter shots selection aren't always the best, where he just kind of dribbles around until it's too late and he forces up a rough shot. Like he's not a perfect player by any means, but it's like for a superstar, for the face of the franchise, for a face of an iconic franchise, like I don't think you can really ask much more of Tatum. So whatever the discourse is, like, you know, like you said, guys like us can talk about it. I don't think he really cares, and if he does, like he doesn't really let it show. So
that's true. That's absolutely true. You mentioned this while we were kind of chatting before the show. This week coming up is, you know, I guess going back to Sunday and through the rest of this week, it's a busy week because they will have played 5 games in 7 nights. They had the back-to-back between the Cavs and the Heat Sunday and Monday of this week. They've got the Pistons on Wednesday, and they just got Cade Cunningham back now recently. So that would be interesting to watch. And then they've got another back-to-back with the Bucks on Friday and the Grizzlies on Saturday. So as we said before, the team is 17-4. They're just 1 game back from the Cavs. Are you worried about any potential slip back from them in the standings? Like, do you think they take a step back this week? Do you think they handle their business? How do you see it playing out?
I think, honestly, tomorrow's the game to worry about, because you just came off a back-to-back against 2, I don't say they're both great opponents because I don't think Miami is, but like, you know, 2 opponents that you have circled on the calendar, so to speak. And then you have that again this weekend with Friday with the Bucks, and then Saturday with the Grizzlies, who are much better this year, and Marcus Smart playing for the first time in Boston. So Detroit planted right in the middle of that, where, yeah, I know they're better this year, but it's still the Detroit Pistons. And so I don't know how much respect the Celtics have for them. So that's kind of the game to worry about, is like, do they take it seriously? But they had a day off the day before, and they'll have a day off the day after. So there's that. And then there's the second night of a back-to-back playing Memphis, which will be the 5th in 7 nights, where if you remember last year, their 5th game in 7 nights, they had just won an overtime game against Minnesota and then had to travel to Milwaukee on the second night of that back-to-back and just got the crap kicked out of them, just because I think they were tired. And like from the game the night before, granted, these will both be at home, so they won't have to travel. I mean, the whole week they'll be at home, actually. So that should aid in it. But I mean, there's, you know, it's a lot of exciting things happen. You have the Cup, which I think we'll get into after this as far as the topic. But because after this, you don't know exactly who or when they'll play after the game on Saturday for, you know, a week and a half, 2 weeks. But, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing Marcus Smart. I actually might go to that game. So to see his first game, I don't know if he'll get another tribute video. He already got one, but, you know, it'd be cool to see him back on the floor, see the ovations, get to play against him, and see if all those things that people talk about, those annoyances that he does from an opponent standpoint, how we feel against that. You know, Marcus Smart could have one of those games where he hits 5, 6 threes, or he just, you know, just can't make a shot. So, But yeah, I guess tomorrow's kind of the first order of business. Like, take care of business in the games that you should win, so that if you tell me they go 2-1 in these next 3 games, I'm not going to be mad about it. Like, obviously you want to win every game, but I don't want the one to be tomorrow. Like, beat Detroit. That's a game that you should be able to handle if you take them seriously.
Yeah, I agree. The focus should be on tomorrow night. I mean, it should always be on the next game on the schedule, but the Pistons, as you said, I mean, so right now they're sitting at 9-13, but they were missing Cade for a bit there. They've got him back, and they've been pretty competitive, even in these games that they've been losing. I also wonder if the last couple of days they rested guys like Porzingis had rest in there. Jaylen Brown missed a couple games like due to illness, and maybe he really was sick, but I also feel like maybe they weren't necessarily upset to be missing him because they have this stretch coming up this week where they're going to need guys to be kind of fresh. So I wonder if that was in consideration with any of the rest that those guys got over the weekend. And especially with Horford too, because I kind of think you're going to need him against Detroit, especially, and really against all three of these teams that they play this week, just because there's matchups to consider as far as the bigs are concerned. Porzingis will be there too to help, but I think you're going to need all the help you can get because these are three good teams. So I don't think that you can overlook the Pistons at all. But the Bucks game on Friday too, they, as we said before, have just now gotten themselves back above 500. They've dug themselves out of the hole that they put themselves in at the start, but they are like hot right now. Giannis is balling out as he generally does. That's not a team that's ever going to be a pushover at all. So what do you think we'll see in that one?
So I think we'll see Horford and no Porzingis because neither of those two are going to play back-to-backs, and I don't think they're going to put them all into one matchup and then just sacrifice having no big in the second matchup because you have Jaren Jackson on Saturday and you have not only Brook Lopez but also Giannis on Friday. So I feel like Horford most likely will play the Friday game, sit the Saturday. Porzingis will sit the Friday and then play the Saturday if I had to predict. But we're already 2-0 against the Bucks this season. I feel like the Bucks are due for a win against us. I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to get it, and it is in Boston as well. But they have been playing much, much better lately. So I don't know if they've actually turned things around or if it's the level of opponent they played or just kind of figuring things out. But I trust the Celtics to show up for those games, particularly the Bucks game. And like I said, it's Detroit that I'm more worried about. And then the second night of a back-to-back getting to face Memphis. So we'll see. I hope they can come away with at least 2 wins in these games. But yeah, like you said, maximizing rest as well. Like, let's hoping the rest of the guys outside of the 2 bigs are healthy and are able to play all the games this week so that we're not missing more than just the center position on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, and the Saturday game, as you mentioned, you've got I would call it the true return for Marcus Smart to TD Garden because he'll actually be playing. That is going to be, he should get a warm reception. I don't know, like you said, if he'll get another like tribute video or anything like that. But to me, like, I'm just hoping that the Celtics aren't thinking about that kind of thing because they kind of need to take care of business and be focused on the game, which I think they would be. But the Grizzlies also are 14-7, third in the West. And, this is a tough game to have to end this stretch of 5 games in 7 nights on. I know Zach Edey's been dealing with an ankle injury, so he hasn't played since November 17th, but they might have him back pretty soon. And so with Edey specifically, I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I mentioned this. Like, I was completely wrong about him because I thought he would never be able to compete at the NBA level just because he always looked so slow to me. Like, I watching him in college at Purdue, like, he just looked like he was walking with like bricks for feet to me. But and I think there was always something that stuck with me about him with the fact that he was part of that team that lost to a 16 seed in the tournament too. Like, I just couldn't get that out of my mind. But he's turned himself into a pretty nice player. I know he had a great summer league. And he's been, up until the injury, he was a big part of Memphis's success. So, and they've been fine without him too. So they're a good team. And they are certainly not somebody that you can overlook either. So, like I said, this is a real tough stretch for the guys, and hopefully, like you said, they can get like 2 of 3. That would be ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. which actually makes me want to bring into our next topic, talking about the NBA Cup, and if we want to actually see them make it and kind of that scenario, because they have a big stretch this week of playing 5 and 7 nights where you don't want to burn your guys out. You then think about if they're playing in this cup, then they're going to play as a wild card. So you're talking about traveling to another city to play a team in this game that doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter. This one would matter actually, yeah, for the cup, but also for the standings. But then they win that, they're flying out to Vegas. So you're going cross country, you're going to the Pacific time zone. You're playing a game there. If you win that game, then you're playing in the championship game of a game that doesn't count for the standings, but you're playing hard and anything can happen injury-wise, knock on wood. So in my perfect scenario, they did their part. I mean, they didn't go 4-0, but they went 3-1. And so I would like to see them not make it from my personal standpoint. Then they're going to get, I saw Bobby Manning talked about this. I don't know if this is official, that they would get Indiana and Washington, Indiana on the road and Washington at home for the 2 games. And so to me, if they're serious, that Washington's an easy W. And Indiana, I think they'll win, But I mean, the Indiana always plays us tough, and we lost the one earlier this season. But those seem more ideal opponents than whoever you'd play in this tournament, especially if you're playing a younger team that's hungry, like Indiana was last year, that this means a lot more to them than it would mean to us, like in Atlanta or someone else, where it's these young guys that are playing for the money, that they're looking for notoriety, looking for recognition, and winning this tournament, getting to go to Vegas means so much. Whereas to us, it's just I guess it's just another thing in the way from getting to the playoffs. So I don't know how you feel about it. That's how I feel about it. I really don't care. When I'm watching them play in the moment, sure, I want them to win every game. But I really don't care. It's not going to bother me at all if they miss this.
Yeah. Just to kind of set the stage for everybody as far as the standings are concerned and how this whole thing works, because it's confusing to me as somebody who's never been a soccer fan or anything. These things are difficult to follow with these group stages and all that stuff. I get lost in it sometimes, so I had to kind of work to understand it. But so the Celtics are second in the East Group C right now with a 3-1 record. The Hawks officially won the group because the Celtics had the head-to-head loss in their cup game against the Hawks, which is why they're in second despite having a better point differential. But as you said, there are wildcard spots up for grabs. So they'll be waiting on the results of the games tonight between the Knicks and the Magic, and then the Bucks and the Pistons. So from what I understand, the loser of the Bucks-Pistons game is in all likelihood going to be out. And if the Knicks lose to the Magic, the Knicks will also likely be out. The Celtics do have an advantage with the last tiebreaker. If it comes down to that at all, it's last season's regular season record. So they'd take the spot if it came down to that, but it may not get that far. But we'll have to see how those games play out tonight to really know what's going to happen going forward. To answer what you said, we've talked about this before too. I just really don't care for this NBA Cup thing. I get the purpose of it. I understand they have to try to find a way to make these November and December games competitive and interesting for the viewer. But especially as fans of a team as good as Boston is, I really don't want to see them win. Because number one, winning the NBA Cup is meaningless at the end of the day. It doesn't get you anything other than the players getting a bonus in their paychecks and this weird little trophy that doesn't count for much of anything at all. And number two, I don't want the Celtics to have to do all that travel and play an extra game and all that stuff that would come with having to, if they made the championship of this thing, they'd play an 83rd game too. I don't want that. So as you said, best case scenario for me too is absolutely to see them eliminated from this thing altogether. Just let us play regular season basketball and go on with our lives and not worry about the NBA Cup. That would be my dream scenario.
Yeah, because then you're looking at an 83rd game in Vegas on a court that is funky, that causes injuries, and having, Jaylen Brown was slipping all over it last year. You have Porzingis on that court, with his knees and legs and feet. To me, that's not worth it. But to break down the scenario, I think that what has to happen is Orlando has to beat New York, or New York beats Orlando by 38. So let's just take it as Orlando has to beat New York, and then the Bucks game against the Pistons. It's the Pistons, right? Or who is whoever the Bucks play tonight? It's either the Bucks have to win by 6 or their opponent has to win by 7. So basically, if the Magic win and the Bucks game tonight, if the final score margin is 7 or more, then the Celtics would be in. And I'm sure if you're going to be on Twitter tonight, you'll have a constant update from guys like Keith Smith and, Sean Grande, all these people consistently updating you. And I'm sure like when you're actually in the moment, you'll be like, oh, you're kind of give you a rooting interest, but like, I really don't care. So yeah, would it be cool to see him out in Vegas? Yeah. If I lived on the West Coast right now, like I used to, like, yeah, it'd be cool to maybe get to see him. Cause like, if you live in Vegas, you're not seeing NBA games, you'll see Summer League, but this is like a way to get to see your team. So like, that'd be really cool. I think it was a tournament tailor-made to give LeBron James another, trophy for his mantle case. And they get to hang, their banner next to their Mickey Mouse one from 2020. They get to hang their in-season tournament banner. So I really did not want to be that team last year, especially until we had gotten over the hump. Like now it's like if we win it, okay, cool. Like I don't really care either way. But like last year, if the Celtics had won the in-season tournament when Tatum hadn't won a title yet, and we hadn't won a title in 16 years, like I feel like we would have gotten more shit for it than like we would have gotten recognition for it. So I'm actually glad retrospectively that we didn't win that one. Now it's okay, whatever. But like we both agree on, like I really don't care. So
yeah, no, I'm with you. You mentioned Porzingis too. He is back. He's played 3 games so far, and he's been good. He's at almost 20 points a night. I'd like to see him get back to blocking some more shots. He's only at 0.7 blocks per game right now, but it's very early, and he's definitely still got to be getting his legs underneath him. Like I can't imagine how hard it is for a guy his size to get back to being in the right kind of shape to run up and down an NBA floor with some of the best athletes in the world. He hasn't done anything spectacular, but he's a huge help out there. And I do still feel that he pushes them to being like by far the best team in the league if they have him. So have you seen anything that you like or dislike from him so far?
I mean, he's easing his way back in, but I mean, some of that Cleveland game, he just looked unstoppable. And it's just his presence out there, like his size, it deters people from going to the rim when they're out there. It's a longer body to take a shot over, and then you have to account for him. He's going to pull centers out of the wing. If you throw it to him at the top of the key, it just opens every single thing up for the team. So just his physical presence, his ability to be out there, as long as he can physically move, it just changes everything for us, and it elevates us to a level, like I said, that I don't think any other team can ascend to. And particularly if he's on that night, if he's hitting shots, he's blocking shots at the rim, like it's a cheat code, like Tatum said, and like we've all been saying. So, you're going to have to baby him throughout the year. It just is what it is. He's not Embiid. It's just, we know the value that he brings, and they won a title mostly without him last year. And you even saw, like, after a month and a half off during the postseason, comes back in the first quarter, and it's just like he's the best player on the floor in the NBA Finals. So you see what he can bring to the team. Yeah, it's inevitable at some point he's going to get some sort of injury over the course of the season. We're just hoping it's not something else that is just going to linger the whole year, or that's going to be something that requires surgery, or it's going to keep him out for the playoffs. You're hoping it's just that, nagging like not wear and tear, but like bumps and bruises, like that stuff's going to come. That's why you got to manage his minutes. You got to manage his, how often you're going to play him. But he just brings so much to this team that it's great to have him back, and hopefully he can stay back.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, to have him back, it's good to be able to have another guy just to watch and root for too. Because, like you said, I mean, all these guys at some point are going to miss games. With the exception of Tatum, who just seems like he wants to play every single night, and Derek White, for the most part, he's kind of an Iron Man too, in most cases. But so between now and Christmas time, are there any games you're looking forward to in particular?
So I'd actually have to see the schedule, because I don't have it right in front of me if you want to pull that up. But
yeah, I got you. So they got 2 games so this is all after the NBA Cup, because we're not going to know exactly who we're going to play between, the next couple weeks, whatever it is, up until I think the 17th. But after that, they've got 2 games with the Bulls on the 19th and the 21st, and then they've got a matchup with the Magic on the 23rd. And then obviously it's the Sixers on Christmas Day. So just your thoughts.
Don't care about the Bulls matchups, honestly, at all. Orlando will be interesting for a couple of reasons. A, that's a good ascending team that just been hovering up at the top of the standings. And I could see that being, granted, Philly sucks, but I could see that being like a game that's like a trap game right before the Christmas game that they're going to be looking ahead to. They have to travel down to Orlando. You get the nice weather right before Christmas before you come home for that nationally televised game. And plus how we played in Orlando the last few years anyways, I could see that being a tough game for us. And then the Philly game, I hope it's just the way they've been on Christmas, where they just look dominant the last couple of years and they take it seriously. Versus, oh well, Philly sucks. Who knows if Embiid will even play then, or Paul George? So who knows what the product will look like? I actually would rather they play. I feel like there's a much better chance they lose that game if Paul George and Embiid don't play, if they just don't take it seriously. But maybe the fact of like, okay, it's Christmas, it's nationally televised, they'll just kick the crap out of whoever's out there. So I'll know more what to expect from them if Philly's healthy and as close to full strength than if they're not. So, I mean, the Christmas game is not going to be as much of the matchup as you were expecting when you thought Philly was going to be this great team, since they got Paul George to add to Philly that seemingly was always right on the cusp but can never stay healthy. But that team sucks. I don't think they're going anywhere. I mean, granted, the East, especially towards the bottom, like you win 4 out of 5, 6 out of 7 like the Bucks did, and like all of a sudden the Bucks are like what, 4th or 5th seed now. So Philly, I mean, they're not dead for the year. Like if they go on any sort of streak, but that entails health for their 2 stars. So we'll see if that ends up happening. I feel like they're going to end up in the play-in or missing the playoffs. I don't think they're going to get into the top 6. I just don't think they're going to be healthy enough to get into the top 6 this year. I mean, they have the talent on the team. I just don't see it coming together for them. But to answer your question, those 2 games, Orlando and the Philly game.
Yeah, the Philly game I know we'll talk more about coming up, just in the coming weeks, just because it is the Christmas Day game and it's a big deal. The Magic game is the one that I have circled for a couple reasons. Number one, without Paolo, they've been getting a ton out of Franz Wagner and these other guys on their roster that I didn't think they would get as much out of them as they are. So they're like legit. They're good right now without him. Paolo hasn't played since October 30th, but the other thing to think about is apparently he thinks he could be back before Christmas. So and he probably wouldn't be in playing shape. He probably would be on a minutes restriction coming back at that time, but he's a great player. So I think that's going to be a really, really good game too. So that's one that I'm definitely looking forward to. And I'm hoping that is a good one. And I know the Philly game will be enjoyable no matter what, whether it's competitive or if it's a blowout, whatever. It's Christmas Day. I always love when the Celtics play on Christmas Day. It feels like it's becoming tradition now. Like it almost feels like they play every year. I know they don't, but like it's one of those
lately they have, because they're a premier team and they're good. And I feel like that'll be the case. And unless they bottom out, like I could see at least the next 2-3 years, they should be on Christmas, as long as they're at the top of the standings. Like they're a marquee team, they're the champs, and they're going to always be up there. So I feel like for the foreseeable future, they will be.
Yeah, and it's just becoming one of those like family tradition things. Like with my family, we always will sit around on Christmas Day, whatever time of day it is, and whatever we're doing, if we're still like opening presents or eating dinner or whatever it is, like we're watching the Celtics in the background, because it's just a great, great tradition that I would love to see continue. I also feel like, I don't know, there's just something cool about, and maybe it's just like selfishly, I feel like the Celtics being a team that's green on Christmas, like it fits. I don't know why.
It looked really good, like aesthetically on TV. I remember last year when they were playing the Lakers, like the green just looked really good, especially with the red.
I would love it if they would play the Lakers every year. Like if you gave me Celtics Lakers, regardless of where the teams stand, like make that your Lions playing on Thanksgiving every year. Like I would love that. That would be awesome.
No, it's good TV.
So the only other thing I have to ask you before we wrap up, are the Red Sox getting Juan Soto?
The fan in me has convinced myself they are. It's one of those things, like with ownership, I'll believe it when I see it. With anything, we got Aroldis Chapman today, so we're starting to get ready for brawls. Now we just got to get Trevor Bauer. What's the guy, Herman, like from the Yankees, that was like, domestic abuser as well. I've never been a fan of him. I've never liked him. Yeah, he has the stuff. When he's on, he's filthy. He throws heat. But like, I've just seen him.
Where it's going.
Forget about the human being he is. Like, he's just so erratic. I don't trust him. Like I don't trust him any more than I trusted Craig Kimbrell, that I trusted Kelly Jensen like this past year. Like, I just don't trust him. If he's not your closer, if he's like your 8th inning guy, if he's just like a guy that throws gas, swing and miss guy out of the bullpen, then I look at it a little differently. But then you're paying $11 million for that guy. I would have rather got Tanner Scott. So to go back to your point, I want to say yes. And there's all the reports, but like, it depends how credible. It's just, I'll believe it when I see it. I really, really want to believe it. And there's been so much smoke where it's like, it almost reminds me of the Drew Holiday thing. Granted, different situation, different players, but where Himmelsbach is so quick to shoot down any big free star that was available or players available that like Twitter wanted, the Celtics fandom wanted, they just shoot it down right away. And the fact that he wasn't, and he was almost amplifying it, that they really are interested. Like the Red Sox really are interested. I don't know if they're going to come in as the biggest offer. And I don't know if, ultimately that's what he's going to choose. He grew up a Red Sox fan, and we have the big Dominican connection here, especially with Papi. And, he grew up a fan of him and Pedro and Manny Ramirez. We have Bello here. We have, Rafi Devers. Maybe we swing Casas over and get Vlad Jr. and we turn this into, like the DR part 2 with the Red Sox. I'm going to put it realistically at like 38%. I don't know how I came up with that number, but I think we have a chance. I think anybody saying we don't have a chance is lying to themselves, which is mostly Yankee fans. They're just like, oh, he's not going anywhere. Like, I think a lot of that's denial. I feel like that was me talking about Kyrie halfway through his last year in Boston. It's like, no, he's staying. It's like, no, like, I don't think you guys are in the position. I don't think he's like, he's not a lifelong Yankee. He got traded there. He didn't sign there the first time. So maybe he goes back there. I would honestly put them in the third pole position right now. I'd probably go Mets, Red Sox, Yankees. But I think it could go to any of those teams. I don't think he's going to the Blue Jays. And if he goes to the Dodgers, it ruins the sport. So I just don't think that's going to happen. But it's like when KD went to the Warriors, like, you never know. What do you think?
So as you said, like, there's that little tiny part of me that wants to be like, yes, they're going to sign Juan Soto. This is the greatest thing ever. And then there's the part of me that is realistic and says they do this every year to us, like every year.
But I think this year it's just been elevated. Like, I think last year was really bad with the full throttle, but this year if they don't do anything this year, I think they're going to really lose their fan base because they got everyone's hopes up again. This is like the problem. Yeah. It's like in Liar Liar when Jim Carrey would constantly miss his kids' events and stuff. And he's like, I promise you I'll be there this time. Like, this is like, and she's like, okay, that's fine. I'll tell him. But if, pretty much we're getting divorced and leaving to Boston if you don't come, like, that's how it feels right now with this team. Like, they almost have to at this point. Not Soto necessarily, but like, elevate the pitching staff, like elevate the roster.
Yes. So I know we're not a Red Sox podcast, so people probably don't care about any of this, but I agree with you. If they don't sign Soto, and they just pocket the $600 million that it would cost to sign him, then it's like, well, what was all of this for? Like, do you want to be competitive or not? Like,
you can't have all your eggs in one basket. Like, yeah, like you can put the offer out there. If he accepts it, then he accepts it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Like, I don't think any of us on the last day of the season thought we were going to get Juan Soto. So yeah, we've kind of talked ourselves into it now. But if you walk away with like either Max Fried or Corbin Burns and you trade for another starter, and you sign Teoscar Hernandez or another right-handed bat, then it's like, okay, we didn't get Soto, but we did improve. We did, make major additions, and we can be really competitive. If you don't get Soto and you do nothing other than, maybe bring back Tyrell O'Neill, maybe not even that, or go, dumpster diving for Rich Hill for the 8th time, like, then there's a real problem. So we'll see. I mean, the Soto's the domino that's going to start everything else because you have the winter meetings coming up in a week. I think he signs before the winter meeting. So once that happens, then everything else will move.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I feel like we probably covered everything and more with the bonus segment of the Soto stuff. So, we had plenty to hit on. So hopefully we got to it all. But we'll be back next week. We'll decide the day soon, and we'll let everybody know when that will be. But we appreciate y'all for listening, and we are definitely looking forward to this next week or so for the Celtics, and we'll have plenty more to talk about next time we come on after all that too. So for myself and for Alex, we will catch you next time.
Ends tonight here. It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.